we are now looking at 5B.2. Right, I can identify the standard deviation cutoffs of a continuous probability normal distribution. So in this one, right, we don't have the different sections where we can count how many people are in each thing, but there is this rule. In a normal distribution, we call it the 68%, 95%, 99.7% rule. In a normal distribution, right, and it's pretty much just this. I was going to rewrite it, but there's not much point. Right, 68% of data fall within one standard deviation. Okay, so here's one standard within here. All right, 68% fall within the red lines. So that means 34 here and 34 here. Cut it right down the middle. Right. .5% fall within two standard deviations. So between the blue lines. Well, I've already used 68%, so I'm going to do 95 minus 68, and I'm left with 27%. Right? And then I split that in half. And that's how they get to the 13.5% is left. Okay, or goes in each of these. Then 99.7% falls within three standard deviations. So in these lines. So we have 2.35%, and again, same way of getting that. We want 99.7% in three standard deviations, but we've already used 95% in the middle of these two, and you get 4.7%. Divide by 2, you get 2.35%. Okay. Now, I'm not gonna have you create this every time. I would probably just memorize these. What numbers go in here? The last thing you should know is 0.15%. 0.15%. We're gonna fix that other one. Is on the outside. It's that 0.3% left. Right, 99.7%. Right, with 100%, there's 0.3% left outside of two standard deviations. Outside of three standard deviations. So there's 0.15%. On the outside. Okay. So yeah, we're gonna try and practice these a lot before we take our quiz and then before our test. But definitely make we'll make a flashcard with this on it, and that's definitely something that needs to be memorized. Not only knowing the name of the rule, or if these percentages, right, they call it this rule, are not as important as knowing what goes in each column, pretty much. Okay, so we'll definitely make a flashcard with that so we can remember that for our tests and quizzes. All right, let's look at an example. Example 1, the scores on Algebra 2 final are approximately normally distributed with a mean of 150 and a standard deviation of 15. Sketch a normal curve showing scores 1, 2, and 3 standard deviations from the mean. Step 1. Draw normal curve. What we mean by that is we draw a line on the bottom. That's so we can put our numbers down there. And then you just draw, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be pretty much symmetric, right? High point in the middle. Right, so as you practice, your normal curves will get better. So that's your step 1, draw a normal curve. Step 2, add your mean at the middle. place your mean in the middle. So my mean is 150, so I'm going to draw 150. Okay. Step 3. Add/subtract standard deviation. We're always going to go out 3 of them, right? 1, 2, and 3. So my first line I'm going to draw is going to be 1 standard deviation above. So if you think it's 150 plus 15, which is 165. Another standard deviation, I'm going to add another, so I got 165 plus 15 is 180. My third standard deviation is 180 plus 15, which is 205. I don't expect you to actually write that addition down. Okay, I would just put on mine, and I'll do it on the next example, 165, 180, 205. But for notes, we want to make sure we know how we got that number. Same thing, other side, right? But now, since we're going down, 135, right? We're subtracting. 135 minus 15 is 120. 120 minus 15 is 105. Okay. And then step 4, final step for this part of it. Put in percentages. Okay. So again, it's 34 and 34, then 13.5 and 13.5, then 2.35 and 2.35. And then 0.15 on the outside. Okay, so again, those we need to eventually have memorized. So writing them in every problem, though, will help you memorize them. Okay. So now that we have that, let's look at our questions. The first question says, what percentage of the students who took the test scored above 165? Well, here's 165. I'm just going to add up everything above it. And then you get 16%. And that's it. All right, so the hardest part is drawing that normal curve and remembering those percentages. But once you have, if you remember those percentages, these problems are very easy. Okay. B, what percentage of students would you expect to score between 135 and 180 on the final? So now for this one, right, I'm going between two things. Let's grab a different color, we'll do orange. 135 is here, 180 is here, so I'm adding 135 is this line, so I'm adding everything between those two lines. Right, so I have 34 plus 34 plus 13.5%, and I get 68, 78, 81.5. C, is it likely a student scored 190 on the final? So this is a slightly different question. For this one, you want to look at where 190 lies. 190 would be about here. So it's 1, 2, more than 2 standard deviations. So we say no. And it's because it's more than 2 standard deviations. Above the mean. That part of the board doesn't work. Still. No, because it's more than 2 standard deviations above the mean. All right, let's look at one more example. There we go. All right, so again, our first step is to just draw the normal curve. So draw a line, and then draw your curve there. All right, put your mean in the middle. Our mean is 11.4. Then we want to do our standard deviation, so I'm going to go, hold on. Okay, let's try that. So we're going to go above the mean first. So again, our standard deviation is 1.3. So 11.4 plus 1.3 is 12.7. 14, sorry. And then 15.3. Below 11.4 minus 1.3 is 10.1. 10.1 minus 1.3 is 9.1, 8.8. One more. 8.8 minus 1.3 is 7.5. Last thing to finish our curve here is to put in our percentages. So we have 34%. 13.5%, 2.35%, and then 0.15%. So then, A, what percent of the cookies have between 8.8 and 14 chocolate chips? 8.8 is here, 14 is here. So just adding all of these up. Okay, so 13.5% plus 34% plus 34% plus 13.5%, and you get 95%. You could also just look at it and go, okay, this is between 2 standard deviations. The 60, 95, 99.7% rule tells me that it's 95%. What percent of the cookies have less than 10.1 chocolate chips? So here's 10.1, and I want to go that way, right? Less than, so So I'm adding all of these up. And that is 16%. And then C, last question. Is it likely for a cookie to have 9 chocolate chips? Right, 9 is right here. Well, that's 1. Right, it's before I get to 2 standard deviations, so I would say yes. It is within 2 standard deviations. And I will abbreviate. Okay. All right, that is it.